Welcome to Stretford Paddock. Today's show is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Now more than ever, we rely on the internet, whether that's streaming shows, streaming podcasts, speaking with loved ones, or of course, watching the football. Now more than ever, with our rapidly growing digital footprint, security is a huge concern. Thankfully though, Surfshark have got you covered because Surfshark VPN have got access to servers in loads of different countries, which means that you can change your virtual location to a place where the sport might be free to air, or there are different broadcasting rights, or even just being able to log in to your services from back home if you're abroad. Surfshark VPN also encrypts your online connection, making sure that all of your activities, including streaming matches, remains private and secure. And even if you're not just streaming football, whether it's the latest Netflix show or something on Amazon that you've been wanting to watch, you can watch it no matter where you are. And also, there's plenty of region exclusive stuff that you can get access to by changing your digital location. And by connecting to the optimized servers provided by Surfshark VPN, you may actually get faster streaming speeds and reduced buffering, so you're not going to be waiting ages to see if that last minute shot actually went in. Overall, Surfshark VPN offers you the best flexibility, security, and accessibility to all the streaming and shows you could possibly want, making it the best choice for streaming. And currently Surfshark have a phenomenal deal on. Using the code Paddock, which is easy to remember, you get 4 extra months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, 4 extra months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Go and check out the link in the description. And thank you once again to Surfshark for sponsoring the show. Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast and we're going to be talking about Ruben Amorim today. He spoke after the game last night. He talked himself about this idea that he could leave next season if things don't pick up, or generally if things don't pick up. We're going to go through that today. Will he leave? Where he's up to with his time at Manchester United? And maybe we'll even ask the question, should he leave? Get in the comments, obviously. Joined by Ronaldo Brown as always. How you doing, Ronnie?
Doing okay.
Getting
by. It's the worst kind of time, and it's just when United are really, really bad.
Yeah.
You've got to have discourses like this, and it's not what we want to do. We'd rather talk about us winning and playing well, and obviously the positivity of an upcoming Europa League final. But with our league form, stuff like this does crock up. But it is tough losing pretty much every other weekend in the Prem, isn't it?
It is. Joined by Tom Cooney as well. I'd say regular on the show, but it's
semi-regular.
It's been a little while, hasn't it?
It has, yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm all right, yeah.
Yeah. Not enjoying the United's league form.
Oh, it's been so long now, hasn't it? Where it's just one, kind of mini crisis after another. Yeah. I'm bored of having these conversations, but I'm not. I'm very numb to it all now.
Yeah. It's basically been 2 years of this, hasn't it? You mentioned it upstairs, Ronnie, about like we seem to have been perpetually in this state of like, should we sack the manager? Basically, since we finished third under Ten Hag, what will be 2 years ago in May, or in a couple of weeks, it's basically been 2 years of this isn't good enough. Isn't good enough.
It's become draining, isn't it?
And it just it's absolutely ridiculous how far we've fallen in those 2 years. I want to start with the quote from Amorim yesterday, because we will talk on here about the situation with the manager. It's the worst we've ever been in the league on so many metrics, in terms of the Premier League in particular. League position, goals scored, in terms of points accumulated, in terms of so many things, we're just the worst we've ever been. I think number of losses in a season as well is the worst it's ever been. And yet, whenever you raise the idea of the manager, and we're not talking about wanting the manager to get sacked, although if you do want that, feel free to say it. I'm not telling anyone what to say. I don't think that's the case. But we often will get the pushback from people saying, why are you bringing this up? Are you kind of beginning a narrative around this? Are you putting pressure on the manager by saying this? But then you think, just yesterday, our own manager, the man we're talking about here, talked about him leaving if things don't improve. I think for us to not talk about it, especially at this stage, would almost be, turning a blind eye to something that is going on. So I'm going to read the quote from him yesterday. So someone asked him, he said, that feeling, Ruben, that you were saying that it's okay to lose, because he mentioned that there's a culture at the club where it's all right to lose these days. Those kind of players, it's obviously clear you don't want that kind of attribute next season, but those players, can it not be coached into them? Do they just have to be moved on, or is it a mixture? Amorim replied, "I don't know, and I don't want to talk about players, I'm talking about myself, the culture in the club, the culture in the team. I have that feeling we need to change that. We need to be really strong in the summer and to be brave, because we'll not have a next season like this if we start like this. Or if this feeling is still here, we should give space to different persons." Now, from the way he said it, from me reading that, I think he's talking about himself giving space to a new manager. That's what I got from that. If anyone disagrees with me, let me know in the comments. That seems to be the collective understanding of what he said there. What do you make of those statements, first of all, Ronnie?
It comes across like he's just trying to take a little bit of accountability.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's necessarily like giving up the ghost or believing that he will have to walk away. Because I think Amorim strikes me as someone that does have a decent amount of belief in himself and a belief in his ideas. And I'm sure some part of him will think, after a summer window with a little bit more time on the training ground, better recruitment tailored to him, that he can do better. And obviously that the team can do better in general, because obviously we are talking about the manager today, and it isn't solely him. We've had players underperforming for years as well. And it feels like, not even more so players perform for years, because that can sound sometimes a little bit disingenuous, because it's different set of players.
Yeah.
This isn't the same set of players that were here 3 years ago. Obviously you've got some, but we've had, I think, a lot of the recruitment over the past probably 5 to 10 years outside of Bruno Fernandes has been subpar, so that's obviously not helped things. But I don't think he's putting it out there that he plans to leave. I just think it's him just kind of putting it into the media and protecting his players a little bit and taking some accountability for how poor the league's been.
Yeah,
I mean, the league form has been.
Whilst I think you might be right there. I think he's kind of putting everything into perspective of, like, this is how serious it is. I know how serious it is. He said so many times, if we win the Europa League, that doesn't fix things. You know, like he said there during this interview, it's not just about me or the players. It's about the attitude, the culture. Maybe he's just getting out in front of it a little bit. Do you have an issue with him talking about, you know, the idea of him leaving? Do you think that even if he's just saying it to kind of bring everyone's expectations down or to make people realise he's not deluded, do you think that's a good thing to do, or do you think it's a bad thing to do?
No, I like it. I think but I think that's what he's always done. He's very honest. We've looked at, certainly towards the end of Ten Hag, there was, you know, coming out fighting for his job and talking about the improvements that he was seeing and things that he felt were okay and that they're moving in the right direction. We all called him delusional. Yeah. You need to acknowledge that it's bad.
Yes.
It's tricky at the minute because we've slipped into this. It's a one-game season for us. It's not what it's. It's difficult to play both sides because we almost don't care about these league games, and there is a feeling that they don't matter, and there is a feeling around managing minutes, and you wonder how how the players feel, certainly how the fans feel. It can't be easy, but we all know what really matters. But during it, you have to acknowledge it because it's still Man United, and you can't keep losing games. So I think it's just understanding that if this were to continue, obviously I wouldn't be in a job.
Yeah,
that there's no way this can continue with me here.
He can't do 10 years as United boss, finishing 16th every year. Obviously, we all know
he won't get through another season.
He did say we, didn't he, as well? In that, was it we he said in that quote?
Yeah, he said, or if the feeling is still here, we should give space to different persons.
Yeah, I think probably like as a bit of a collective, even some of the players that are here that aren't good enough as well. It could be like a combination of the two. Yeah, because I think it's just been, as I said, me and Joe speaking earlier, it does seem draining that we're having this conversation yearly. And it just shows like just how poorly this football club has been run, and that's just in all facets. It feels like we have a plateau or decline, and if we do improve, it's like one step forward and then 2 steps back, and it has become very difficult. And I think a lot of the debates that fans are having with where the blame lies, it's just born out of frustration for us wanting obviously the club to do a lot better than it has, and it seems like it's been 5 to 10 years now, even more, and we can't seem to find the answers.
Just looking at the manager, and you said there, Tom, you made a good point. He can't come out and say, who gives a fuck what happens in the league? He can't say that because that's absurd. Yeah. Then it's like, what even are you as a United manager? You don't care, you don't want to win. But there is an underlying idea and an underlying acceptance that, like, the league doesn't matter at this point. It is literally like, I'm more annoyed that Yoro got injured yesterday than that we lost at home to West Ham. Because that Europa League final is the main thing that matters here. But then do you believe it's possible to let these players' attitudes go like this, sink down, eventually it doesn't matter, who cares what happens, it's only the league, and then all of a sudden next season we're meant to care again? Do you expect that to turn around, or do you think it will just be the case that once there's something to play for, they'll pick up?
I don't know. I think there's definitely certain players in that squad that I think will. I look at Casemiro, for example. I feel like when Casemiro's got something to fight for, we see the best version of him.
Yeah.
Whereas when the games are almost irrelevant, he's.
Do you know what's funny about that, Tom? I think it's come out. I don't know if it's true or not. People quote me if I'm wrong now. His wages go up to 375k.
Oh, nice.
Well, he has a Champions League bonus.
He has a Champions.
A lot of them do. It's not just Casemiro.
He has a Champions League bonus clause, and everyone's like, "Is that why he just turns into prime Casemiro in Europe?" But but obviously, he's not the only one. A lot of players have bonuses and incentives that are based on winning. That's why it's interesting when people say these players don't really care as much as they do because they get paid anyway. There are so many things in clauses in players' contracts that incentivize winning. Obviously, bonuses, winning bonuses, goal bonuses, clean sheet bonuses, where you finish in the league. So I think it's not always the case, but with Casemiro, I think he has played really, really well in Europe. But again, it's one of them where we have to almost look past him now because he's getting on a little bit. He's probably going to be here maybe a year longer.
Been rested for a few of the games, hasn't he, as well, lately in the league.
And then all eyes on recruitment again. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I think Ineos have got a monumentally big summer coming.
I feel better though that we have Ineos now. Not that I don't think they're unbelievable, but if you'd offered me this situation where we are in the league 18 months ago, and you've actually got a structure in place and different footballing people and the Glazers are in the background a little bit, I would have taken it because I feel like for the first time I could see the possibility of an upward trajectory coming out of it. I feel like it's been a decline for 10 years. I feel some of these second place finishes and trophies, they've been papering over the cracks. And I don't think you can tweak your way out of such a cultural decline. You make tweaks after you win a league to keep yourself competitive. So I really don't know what fixing this looks like. And that's why I'm not overly panicking right now, because I don't know what the open heart surgery looks like. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It could be this, we almost have to, hang fire for a few months and see where we are come Christmas, because this window's massive in the summer. Yeah. And how important are these players that we're supposedly going to bring in to facilitate him doing what he wants to do? I don't know. I really don't.
That is the big thing. It is what he said it there about being brave in the summer. And like you said, some of those second place finishes, I'm not turning my back on any of those or saying that it didn't count or anything like that. But we've never gone into February, let alone March, in a true title challenge. So there's a difference between a second place finish in 2012 when City beat us on goal difference in the last kick of the game, and a second place where you're 20 points behind the leader. Those aren't the same thing.
And I never believed we were going to kick on from
No,
them.
exactly.
It really felt like all the problems were still there.
Yeah, and I think that at the minute, like you said, Ronaldo, the last 2 or 3 years, maybe not including this summer just gone, because I think we've signed some good players, but under Ten Hag, and it's not just Ten Hag's fault, but there is an element of trying to appease Ten Hag, and also the people who were doing the purchasing over those 2 years were new to the job and not very good at it, seemingly. The amount of money that we wasted in that time has led to us being a team that is, even at our worst, we're 6th. That was the standard for a long time. It was 6th, and then maybe 7th. Was it 7th under Moyes? But it was that kind of Europa League kind of spots, and we'll be all right. So now it's, if you're not a newly promoted side, and who's just absolutely collapsed this season, you're better than us. That takes a long, like you said, it's been sort of 10 years of getting there, and I think we need to look at the way you get out of that. And I think looking at some of the teams that have done that recently, so teams that have gone from not winning league titles and challenging for league titles to challenging for and winning league titles again. I think this sort of century, as in since 2000, not in the last 100 years, it's Chelsea, it's City, and it's Liverpool. They're the 3 teams that have gone from not winning stuff to winning big stuff. So Chelsea did it in 2003, or they were taken over in 2003. City did it with a takeover as well, and not just that, I'll go through it. Liverpool did it with a new manager and some really sort of, I don't want to say lucky, but kind of really good signings that people maybe didn't expect to be quite as good as they did. But Chelsea had Jose Mourinho come in, the ultimate charisma machine, unlike anything we've ever seen in the Premier League before or since. And he brought with him Ricardo Carvalho. I think he brought Deco with him as well. They also had their own little golden generation.
Pre-FFP as well.
Pre-FFP, so they could just go mad. They also got Drogba, obviously. They had John Terry. They had Lampard already. I think they had Joe Cole as well. They had a few other players in there that, with him, with their new spending, and with the momentum that came with all that, they won the league in basically 18 months.
And they were a
smashed it.
Champions League team, weren't they? I think they qualified the season before. Is that right?
Yeah.
On the last day.
And he was, he came in and turned that around instantly. I don't think Amorim is he's a charismatic guy, but he's not Jose Mourinho, is he? And we can't spend the way they did. So the next one is City in 2008. Again, it was a takeover, massive spending without FFP restriction, basically. They got a manager who wasn't as inspiring as Jose Mourinho, but was, competent, good manager in Mancini after Hughes had left. Then they brought in, but the crucial thing, they brought in players like David Silva, Vincent Kompany, Sergio Aguero, that allowed them to push up and get up to challenging for league titles and then winning it. The different one is Liverpool, because that wasn't off the back of some mega money takeover. That was getting Klopp in and then transitioning away from the likes of Coutinho towards Salah, Mane, Van Dijk and Alisson eventually. So what do you think we can learn from them, Ronnie? What can we emulate Chelsea and City, or is it?
I think
we're not going to get the takeover boost.
That's completely different. Obviously, you mentioned Leicester.
I didn't mention Leicester in there because obviously they won the league, but they haven't gone. They won it once and then they dropped right off and they got relegated.
I don't think it's comparable, because you are talking about a time where it is before PSR and FFP.
Okay.
And you also, I think the money spread in the league nowadays from the teams in mid-table and lower is a little bit stronger as well.
Okay.
So it is tougher. It's hard to even say how far away United are, because people obviously, if we're thinking about title challenging, or even top four, you're looking at the likes of the mainstays, which is pretty much City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and you could say Chelsea. I think we need to be looking at Newcastle, Villa, Spurs. I think they're the first hurdle.
Yeah.
At this moment in time, I think we can't even look too far ahead.
But
it's not. But it's obviously not going to change unless there's a massive overhaul in terms of squad and profiles anyway. And it's about whether we have the money to do that, and it's about whether we hit on those, and we quite often haven't in recent years.
Yeah.
And then again, it's looking at the other teams as well and whether they improve or not. So I think there's a lot of varying factors, but it's not looking promising. But what I will say is, us finishing 16th in the league, that's obviously not our ceiling, even with the current squad. Do you know what I mean? I think you think next season the only way is up.
Well, they've said top 6, haven't they?
Top 6. I think that's something we could challenge for. Could I sit here and guarantee that we'd get top 6 next season? I don't think I could with any confidence. No. And obviously that's a sad thing to say.
Those teams that I mentioned that have done that transition that we're trying to do, because it's not easy. You look at the numbers there. Someone did it in 2003, someone did it in 2008, someone did it in 2017. It's not happening all the time. You don't go from being a mid or lower table team like we are to challenging for league titles consistently. That doesn't happen every year. It's the same teams challenge, and then occasionally someone else will come in and out. How are we the next ones on that list? Man United 2025, gone from where we are now to challenging again. I think you can
probably look more at Liverpool.
Yeah.
I think it changes all the time. The landscape's changing, so it's hard to look back, X amount of years and draw parallels. But, certainly with Liverpool, they were a team that were, I think, United are in a little bit of a false position in that comparison, because the league's, I think, is way more competitive now. If you're not where you need to be, then you're going to be punished more than you were 10 years ago. But Liverpool had issues, didn't they, with conceding goals. They were scoring goals. And in one summer, they went. Who did they sign? Was it Van Dijk, Alisson? Was there someone else that came in that summer? Was it maybe Mane? I'm not sure. Or was he January? I don't know. But they made 2 or 3 huge signings, and then they were challenging for the league next year. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but it's. I mean, we're a nightmare at the minute for scoring goals, and I think fixing that with a couple of players, it wouldn't be unreasonable for us to all of a sudden be challenging at the top end of the league, for top 6, if you were to get that right, because I do think there are some elements of a foundation there. It's just missing far too much for us to be competitive.
It's going to have to be a big jump though, because obviously we can't bury our heads in the sand. It's been 6 wins in our last 25 league games. Yeah, that's I think 25 league games isn't that small of a sample size, is it? That's relegation form.
How much of that?
Do you know what I mean?
How much of that do you blame on the manager? How much of it do you blame on when he came in, on his squad? How do you apportion that blame, and how does that sort of affect the manager's chances next season?
It's a collective. It's players not being good enough, recruitment not being good enough, not enough physicality and athleticism in the squad, and then obviously you got Amorim's not blameless either.
What do you blame him for?
Do you know what I mean? It's hard to specifically say. I think people have tactically kind of been a little bit dismayed by the back three thing, saying that we're very passive out of possession. We're a little bit too easy to attack and play against. And then we've got our build-up has become a little bit of an issue. People have question marks about the central centre-half stepping in and almost being anonymous and keeping us like almost -1 in the build-up. Wing-backs having a little bit too much earnest on them in terms of the build-up as well. But then you're also just talking about our ability to attack and sustain attacks as well. But the reason why, if you go into specifics, it's quite hard to say because obviously I'm not in the room.
No, of course, yeah.
So I can also, so that's why I sometimes see with people that do mention obviously the players not being good enough because it's obviously them being on the pitch and them carrying out the performances. But I think it's unfair to say it's just players only. Do you know what I mean? It has to be a combination of. Next season, if we are going to improve, it needs to be an improvement tactically, it needs to be an improvement in the personnel. And if you get them two things, then you'll obviously see an improvement. But I feel like it's hard to say it's just completely one or it's completely the other.
I feel like with Jose, with Solskjaer, with Ten Hag, that each one of them had an obvious criticism that people threw at them, and eventually things cracked and they left. I think with Jose, it was that he's a little bit past it. He's not up to speed with kind of modern tactics. He wants tall, heavy, older guys to do this sort of one last dance style big season with him, like he did at Inter, like he did at Chelsea when he went back there in particular. Like he sort of brings them in, gets them around going, no one thinks you can do this, but we're going to do it. And he kind of does it that way. And that seemed a little bit old fashioned compared to what Pep was doing. I think with Ole, it was the whole no tactics, just vibes thing. Like when it comes to that top level, semi-final FC as we were known, semi-finals and finals, he can get out-thought and maybe sort of outworked as a tactician. And I think eventually that cracked and fell apart. I think with Ten Hag, he's a little bit of a headmaster. He's not as sort of charismatic as you might like. And it was the big hole in the middle thing, wasn't it? That was the thing that was like, yeah, this guy tactically, it's symbolised by this hole in the middle. I don't know what the Amorim equivalent is. I mean, we do this every day. I don't see an obvious same. I hear the three.
Could I ask you the reverse question?
Yeah, sure.
So, what do you think we do well?
Well, in terms of compared to those other managers, or just generally, like what do I think Amorim's trying to teach us to do well, or what do we actually do well compared to before? Like how have we improved, or?
It's like, if you look at us as a team, what do we actually do well?
I think, all right, there isn't a lot, obviously, because we're 16th. I think that in the final third, we seem to know what we're supposed to do more.
We don't have the answers in it. We don't.
But I think we know what's supposed to do more. I think we see those number 10 runs in. We see the fullbacks playing the ball. We see the cutbacks to the penalty spot. I'm seeing a lot more cutbacks. That seems like a more modern way to kind of put the ball in the back of the net. I feel like we press a lot higher. With our centre-backs, I don't think our attackers press particularly well, but I think very often you'll see the centre-backs pushing in with their player that's dropping back in. I think we're pretty good at that. Weirdly, we've actually got quite good at set pieces this season. We score a lot of goals from set pieces out of nowhere when we're terrible at that. There's so many things we do badly.
So what do the people think?
That's the thing. But I just do. I don't
think it's an obvious shambles on the pitch.
That's not it. What's the thing that's like? Obviously, Amorim must take some blame. He is the manager, but what's the thing on the pitch that is the problem? Do you think, in particular?
Honestly, don't know, and that's what I think. I mean, I can't get away from the fact that I just don't want to go too early with him because if this turns out to be a necessary evil, and we start the season well with, 3 players that really change things, and all of a sudden it brings the levels up of these other players, and then. You look back at this time and you think, okay, it was all about the system, wasn't it? And it was great that he had this time to identify the players that he could trust. And we've actually done something in the summer that we've been saying we needed for 10 years. Yeah. And for the first time, we've actually addressed everything in the summer. So I don't know.
I think what's probably a bigger indictment, to be fair, is I think we've had managers that have beaten us recently. Potter, I can't remember, a couple others that have basically said after the game that they've insinuated that we're easy to prepare for.
Yeah. I mean, we are obviously at the minute.
Yeah,
I'm not doubting that.
Maybe.
But is that a managerial thing, or is it because
we don't impose ourselves on games?
No, we don't.
From the kickoff. In the Premier League, it's
loads of comments. Obviously, sorry, Tom.
No, it's okay.
We've got loads of comments. people talking about, this is Ridwan, we literally go into every Premier League game knowing the forwards and midfielders are going to do nothing. They can't dribble, no pace, no power, no physicality. Ugarte can't play under pressure too. Truth Seeker says get Premier League proven players in the same formations. I think basically saying if we get better players, we'll play better. I think we're more balanced. This is answering your question, Ronnie. What are we better at, or what are we good at? I think we're more balanced. We need to do it in the final, though, but we're not good enough to finish the chances. We look better in midfield and more creative. Our defence looks stronger. And then it says, he's running out of space there, but I think he's going on to say basically our attack doesn't get the job done. I saw you talking about it yesterday. United's total XG was, I think, something like 2.6 to West Ham's 1.5. So we made chances. A lot of it, as you rightly pointed out on Twitter, came after they were 2-0 up. So when they
it's not always like that, though, is it? We are a very wasteful team.
So we are a very wasteful team.
That's why, after the game, just seeing, we had more XG than them. Sometimes you got to look a bit more for the context. That's why I tweeted that, because I think our XG was 0.47, which isn't a lot, until he went 2-0 down. And what happens then is West Ham are away from home at Old Trafford. They're 2-0 up, so they sit back. They sit back, they invite pressure, they go a little bit more conservative, and then it's just basically attack through defence, and then we're knocking on the door a little bit more, and that's when we created our chances, which then you can say we created enough chances to get back into the game, or maybe even win the game, and that's then when you obviously lay the blame on the finishing, because I think our attackers have been so poor, and I think that is something you can point to on a personnel, where you look at our forward players and our attackers, and you're like, you can literally go all the way down the league and feel like you can pick out better ones.
This is it, you go right down, and
we literally might be signing our starting striker next season from a relegated side, which I think is fine. I'm not knocking that.
And a 10 from Wolves potentially.
Yeah, who up until they had this mad 6-game winning streak or whatever it was, were also one of the few teams below us in the league. You mentioned before about Liverpool. Obviously, this is well trodden stuff, but it was that summer they sold Coutinho, and they signed Van Dijk, Salah, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Andrew Robertson. In particular, Robertson, Salah, and Van Dijk have been absolute mainstays, some of the best players in that team. Then the season after they signed Alisson, spent a lot on Keita, which was one of the few failures at that time, and Fabinho as well, who obviously again was absolutely massive for that first league title win. I know this is obviously it's a very simple and obvious thing to say, but I think if you put just two better attackers in this team, everything looks different. And not just, the manager looks better, everyone feels better, we could be, 12 points further up in the league. We could all of a sudden, I think, you put Salah, let's look at that window there. You put Salah and Van Dijk and Robertson in this team. I think United are in European places immediately.
So do you, what's the ceiling, do you reckon? So, because I think what we're seeing shortly is the absolute floor.
Yeah, although you used to make a good point last season, and it was used to criticise Ten Hag, which I think is fair enough. I'm not knocking you for that. But it was that we finished 6th last season, but a lot of the sort of underlying metrics of the way we scored goals, the way we created chances, the way we conceded chances and goals, put us more like a sort of 14th or 15th. Do you remember talking about that?
Everyone's talked about at the end of the season how we've basically finished 15th on expected points.
Yeah.
Obviously based on
and now we are there. So maybe the squad is just performing.
But our expected goals is that of a team in the top half almost.
So maybe we're just playing to the standard of the squad. Maybe we don't have to always blame the manager. Maybe we don't have to find someone to sack about it. Just buy better players and we will play better football. Look at the minute. I keep talking about this, but United's open play expected goals is 42. We've scored 29. So that is an underachieving of 13 goals, which is 13 well-placed goals is an extra 25 points. Let's say 10 points minimum. Even that, you're pushing up by 4 or 5 spots. That's just if you only scored the chances that we've made in this awful season.
And then also, people say, better keeper as well.
Yeah, but
could get you more points.
The thing is, we're getting results. Let's forget it was Man United for a second, and you come into this squad of players.
Yeah.
And you wanted to, you're coming after a bad start to the season and you want to finish as high as possible. You wouldn't approach the job the way he's approached it. You wouldn't play the way he's going to play. It's not that he's played this season.
No.
But he has to look forward to what Man United are expected to be doing very, very quickly. Within 18 months, there is no, path that he can take where he gets to build up from 16th to 14th to 8th. It doesn't work like that. He needs to be back amongst it quickly. So... Yeah. He's already looking to get this team playing the way he would expect a team to be playing, that's taking the game to everyone, home and away, fighting in the top 6. These players can't do that.
No.
He's putting these players in positions where we're expecting, that it's. I do sometimes think it's a personnel issue, especially at the top end of the pitch. It's hopeless to watch at times.
He's not. The thing we're talking about him mentioning leaving. He's not going to be sacked. He's. Are
you sure about that?
Nah.
Let's say we lose the
because I see it from. I don't think that
they've learned to not put it on one game.
He's going to get the window. He's going to get recruited for, and we're going to have players coming in, and then I think he'll be judged on how he performs between the start of the season to January probably.
Yeah.
And he'll just see how. And then
but that was the sort of position of Ten Hag, wasn't it? We all sort of said the same thing. He'll get till Christmas, but he didn't get till Christmas because it didn't pick up. So if we carry on how we are now, at the start of next season, he won't get till Christmas, and we'll find ourselves in the exact same spot.
Well, it was 10 out of third season, wasn't it? I guess that was the.
We'll buy players. There'll be players sold. There'll be players that will come in. If the form in the league is like what we've seen over the past 25 league games going towards January, then he'll be in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's just the bottom line of it, really.
Which I think comes back to his quote. Is that there's no. It doesn't really matter what he says. I mean, it's not. It's not a strange thing to say. It's the absolute reality that this can't carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just received a funny message from our producer Harvey there about the email address of someone that we want to get on the show, and I guessed what it was before, and it's what I guessed, which is great. Sam Ford says sacking Amorim equals embracing toxicity and weakness. I agree. Satiris Sots, in quotes, Sturgeon, says, take out 5 of the top 7 highest earners of any club and see how they fare. I think all the factors have compounded. My question is, what next? That's a good point about the top earners. Obviously, some of those were on too much money and shouldn't have been there in the first place. But the likes of Sancho, Rashford, Anthony leaving in this season and not really being replaced. I know we brought Xerxes in, but he's, very much finding his feet, to say the least. Like, Rashford's got 30 goals for us 2 seasons ago. We've come nowhere near replacing those sorts of numbers. I honestly just think it needs a situation of just buy some better players and we're going to see a huge difference. Our players just aren't good enough.
How huge? Do you reckon it will... Because what are you expecting? I don't think United are going to go into the summer and buy like 7 players.
No.
So
here's
a loss dependent on certain outgoings and prize money from a competition, isn't
absolutely.
it?
Because I think there's this kind of theory that we're just going to be going into next season with a complete new team.
No, but I don't think we will do that, and I don't think that's needed either.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, Tom, we're not good. Amorim can't go, well, we finished 16th last season and we're on for finishing 14th this season. Progress. That won't happen. It needs to be firmly top half next season, pretty much the whole time. He can't have like a late run of winning 6 games and get 9th. He needs to be in and around fighting for Europe for
with
most
some big
of
performances in big games away
exactly.
from home, so we can see it taking hold.
Yeah, we do know those games do hold a lot of weight managerially with how you perform against your big rivals.
And that's one thing that is in his favour so far. He's looked good against Arsenal. We beat him in the league, in the FA Cup. We beat City in the league. We drew away at Anfield when they weren't drawing games at all or dropping points at all. If you can plug that back in, that'd be great, wouldn't it? He's done pretty well in the big games. So that's something that needs addressing. But I do think that if you get a striker, we're not. I know you're saying that we're not going to be able to get 7 or 8 new players, which is understandable. But I think Cunha seems to be doable, if not done, in there. Yeah, great. Sorry, Ronaldo pulled the HDMI out for the telly and just put it back in. Thank you. So Cunha's doable. Delap is doable. That's 90 million. Let's say both of those happen. They might do. They might not. We'll see. I think then getting another striker or another attacker isn't out of the realms of possibility.
No.
I think surely I'm not saying we'll get Gyökeres and Delap, but you could spend 150 to 200 million this summer, presumably, if the sales are right. I think that's 4 or 5 players.
I've got a slight worry about Delap. There were times when I thought with Højlund, I can see a player here.
Yeah.
But the task of it has just been far too much. I don't know how much of it is his real ability or the fact that he suffered so much from having to come in and be the leading striker for Man United when he just was far from ready in a massively pressure stacked position. Because now I watch him and I think, I worry that he's a real problem, and I would just be reluctant. I know Delap's had some success in the Premier League, which is different. And I guess that's where we're kind of at, isn't it? We're not. We do have to make our money go quite far and maybe take a few little risks.
Do you know what, that's the concern? For the players that you'd want, these like star players, these Champions League quality players that could turn around your fortunes a little bit faster and speed up the rebuild process. The money it cost is just it's not realistic, and the only way you're talking about sales. I think to go into the summer and spend 250, 300 million pounds, the only way we could do that is.
I think 150 to 200. I think that's surely.
Selling Maine, selling Garnacho.
You sell Rashford, you sell Sancho, you sell Anthony, you sell, let Lindelof, let a couple of others go as well. Eriksen's going on big wages. Lindelof's going on not big but decent wages. Malacia's surely going to leave. Just get rid of those players.
So we're sat
150.
We're sat 16th place in the league. Yeah. And that's probably accurate to how we've performed.
Yeah.
In all honesty. How much of a jump do you think 150 to 200 million pounds in the transfer market makes us from 16th?
If it's well spent,
what's the season?
And I don't mean like I'm looking here at this Liverpool window, 173 million euros, which is about in that ballpark. That's a once in a
because they finished top 4 before that, didn't they?
And that's a once in a generation window. Van Dijk, Salah, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Robertson. All started, all very good. Oxlade-Chamberlain up and down or whatever, but the other three mainstays for nearly a decade now. So I'm not even asking for something of that quality. I'm just saying a window that improves us. I think immediately you should be looking at qualifying for Europe of some description, even if that's Europa Conference League. I think top half, that jump is like, there's so many teams fighting in there. So you spend 150 million properly, you can easily bridge that gap.
So minus 62-ish for Cunha, and you've got around 150 million left to play with. Definitely think improvements can be made, but you just look at the squad and there's so many holes. Right? It's like, I just have concerns about how far our jump will be, especially in one window.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at, you could look at a new striker, you could see another 10, probably another centre half, a right wing back, and then people have a lot of concerns about our keeping position as well. In theory, if you was to address all the problems United have from a personnel standpoint, you're looking at way over 300 million.
Yeah, especially if it's probably going to take 2 years.
Yeah,
but I think as well, if you look at that Liverpool window, Robertson, Salah, Van Dijk, Alisson, they're all leaders in that squad.
Yeah.
And I actually don't think we had a terrible window last summer in some regards. It was more the timing and are you getting what you need at the right time? But some of them players I think are really good acquisitions, but it didn't really address. I think De Ligt is a leader on the pitch, but I think this team's crying out for it. So we do lack personality.
Yeah.
I
and
agree. Signing the right profile of player. If they're 2 or 3 players that you can look to when things get difficult, all of a sudden that changes what this team is capable of mentally.
Yeah.
Do you know what something that United do specialise in the transfer market though is investing in a position that they need to then invest in again the following season or in 18 months.
Yeah.
And that's just because we're recruiting...
Just buy the wrong players.
Buying the wrong players.
Yeah.
And then, was it 2 seasons in a row we spent nearly, over 150 million on the right wing position? We did it with Anthony and we got Sancho, and then before you know it, they both flop. And then again, you look the following year like, we need another right winger. And then you look at all the money, and it's hurting us now because obviously there have been mentions about PSR and FFP. Some people believe obviously United being in the club it is. Sometimes you reckon over-egg the financial restrictions that we do end up having in the transfer market. But even so, it's just like, it makes the rebuild a little bit stuttery.
Well, I saw an interview with, his name's Tom Cooney, who was the, let me just double check his title. But basically, he was one of the heads of negotiation for United during the window where we signed Anthony, Casemiro, Eriksen, Malacia, and who else did we get? It wasn't Onana that season, he was the year after. So that window, it was United's biggest ever spend. I think it was 200 million that we spent in that window, or 200 million plus, under 10 Hag in his first summer. And he was speaking about, and I want to get him on the channel by the way, so I've reached out to him, but if anyone knows him, let me know. But he was talking about basically living at Carrington for the whole summer because that's what it required. He also said there was a bit of a tricky situation where he was new, John Murta was new, Richard Arnold was new, and Erik ten Hag was new. Essentially, all new to their roles that summer. So he said that we started that summer's work in May. Normally you start it the previous September when the last window closes. We started it 8 months later in May, hoping to have a brilliant window with a new manager to get him off on the right footing with all new people. And now we look back at it and go, Casemiro's a decent signing, but probably not worth the money. You know, we could have spent that money somewhere better for a year and, you know, a handful of games that have been excellent. Anthony, one of the worst flops we've ever had. I think, who else did we sign? Ericsson, good on a free. Malacia, has he been, you know, he was cheap, but has he been worth it? He's been injured for most of the time he's been here. And you think, like, this is Man United. This is who is doing these deals for us sometimes. So hopefully, even if nothing else, Jason Wilcox has worked in football. Barada was at the most successful English team for the last, you know, decade in Man City. People who are in and around this club now have done this before. Surely that, if nothing else, is going to lead to 150 million better spent than we've had.
I don't
Surely
think they'll
we can
repeat
expect that.
them mistakes. I just think it's been... We changed personnel quite a lot, didn't we, over the 10 years? There was always tweaking and new people coming in that were equally as inept as the last. So, and it was just one disaster after another. All the managers, you know, will have stories told about them, or stories they'll allude to themselves about some of the chaos and, you know, poor planning around transfers. Yeah. And I think that it's such a... It's so reactionary, isn't it? You saw it from minute one post Sir Alex Ferguson with that first transfer window where there's this, okay, we're trying to do something. Oh, it's not worked out. Panic. Well, we need to do something. Yeah. And so you do things that you then have to undo within 12, 18 months. Yeah. And you create, you exacerbate the problems. And we've had a decade of doing that, and it's just got worse and worse and worse. And the job needed on the squad has got harder and harder. But now I feel like it's, as you say, it's in the hands of proper footballing people, and they won't. I'd be stunned if they made the same mistakes to the same extent.
Me too. Scary though, isn't it? It is scary.
I'm tired of being rubbish, innit?
I know. It's just I'm sick of it. And also, if there's a decent team from the promoted sides next year, we might be in a relegation battle. That's the thing to remember. Because I think we're going to finish 17th.
Do you think?
I do, yeah. I think
Spurs will probably pick up a couple of points.
Spurs will get a couple of points, and we've got Chelsea and Villa. Chelsea, both of whom are going for top four. So I think Villa are struggling, but they can still make they've got stuff to play for. We're going to rest everyone on Friday against Chelsea, and then Villa will either be we're still hungover from the Europa League final, or we are still buried in our heads in the sand pretending it didn't happen because it's the worst night of our lives. I'd be surprised if we get another point in the league. So if next season Sheffield United come up in the playoffs or whatever, or Leeds look pretty decent, or Burnley, play some defensive football and get 39 points, it might be fucking championship.
No chance.
The trend of the Premier League.
No chance.
Isn't happening. It's just the promoted sides come up and struggle now.
But that's what I'm saying. If one of them doesn't. Martin Darcy says, teams too defensive in starting personnel, too high up, not physical enough, turned in transition, frontline awareness stinks. Stinks like a tramp sock, blimey. I agree with most of what you're saying. But I don't think that there's too many options to change that. I think the defensive in starting personnel, obviously that's on the manager's system. But I think most of the time, like we were talking about it on Thursday night, the person doing most of the dangerous stuff in the first half of that game was Dorgu. And he's a wing back, so he's getting forward, he's doing stuff.
Do you know what's another thing when I watch United? I see very few relationships between players as well. Do you know what I mean? Whenever you see good teams, you feel like there's a good bit of chemistry between the players. So you can see like there's players that like playing with each other and combine very well. I just never ever see that when I watch United.
Do you read anything into this European run
in terms of like progress?
Because you can't.
I'm always a big advocate for thinking your league form is your bread and butter.
Of course,
and the league, your league performance is a better barometer for where you are.
It's so weird that it's so different though. I don't think I've ever seen that, and this competition's never seen that because we're the lowest ranking finalist I think ever, or certainly in the modern era. So Tottenham are, us two are the worst that they've ever had.
But we could be looking at 3 trophies in 3 years, and
an undefeated European campaign, which is unthinkable, really. Because we'd have this thing, and I said it in the preview the other day. We'll have this thing where we'll be awful in the league, really good in the Europa, and then absolutely awful again the week after. And it's like are we assuming that the players are playing at 100% every time, but the Europa League is such a low standard compared to the Premier League that you can win one and just lose every single time? Is it a mentality thing? Is it a combination?
Are we physically too far off to play 2 games in a week at high intensity?
I think it's just the Premier League has like a base level of physicality and athleticism that we're poor in comparison to a lot of the other teams in the league. But when we're playing against teams that are in the league or in Serie A in Europe, the physical aspects of it isn't as bad.
Do you think that accounts? Like, to me, I would get that if we were, getting through sneak. But we're like scoring a load of goals. We battered Bilbao. It's like we're undefeated in the competition. It's not just a case
and we have done well in big games in the Premier League when we needed a performance.
Yeah, I think there's a mental side as well as I agree on the physical front. But I don't just like if you chucked us in La Liga this season, would we finish third behind Barca and Real? I don't think we would.
I don't think Manchester United finish 17th in the league or no.
No, I don't think 17th. But do you think we would be above Bilbao in the league?
Probably not.
I don't think we would. I think it is a mental
styles
thing.
do make fights and that, don't
they?
But I think we finish. From what I'm seeing Anthony do in that league, I'm pretty sure this United squad probably finishes at least top 6.
Again,
that might be disrespectful to the league.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the massive difference between the Premier League from a physical standpoint, which has become like one of the most important things in modern football, compared to the Premier League.
Yeah, it's mad though. I think there's more to it than just that. I know you're not saying it's just that, but I do think that there's a mental element to it rather than just we've got more athleticism compared to that league, so we win every time. Lerone Vanardo, who's been a member for 52 months, says we can't lump this transfer group in with the previous ones because they have a track record and seem to have a plan, even if it's tough decisions. Yeah, that sort of aligns with what you said, Tom, about surely we can't make the same mistakes again. Speaking of mistakes, let's look at Wally of the week then. I don't know if you know about this, Tom. Every week we assign a Wally of the week who we just think has been an absolute Wally this week. It can be something in your personal life, usually a footballing Wally, but we'll let you go last so you can sort of see ours and come up with one. Ronaldo's always got one prepared to go like that. Ronaldo, who's your Wally of the week?
I said that I'd have my Wally of the week prepared if I went last in terms of picking.
Oh really? Is that what it is?
That's how it works.
That's how it goes.
What's available for Wally of the week?
Well, I think you can. I don't actually know, because let's see what people are saying in the comments. It's a tough one this week because United are just terrible. People saying Arteta, people saying the Forest owner. That's a decent one. Yeah, that's a decent one. Forest owner getting on the pitch and sort of pointing, in the chest of the manager who's taken them from 17th to 7th and acting like it's not good enough. I think that's a decent one. I'm going to go with the Forest owner. Let me show him some respect by getting his name. I know it's a bit of a tricky one. His name is... spelled Forest wrong.
Difficult to pronounce, isn't it?
It is.
Some people defending the Forest owner saying it's just he's just showing that he cares.
Evangelos Marinakis, of course. He does care, but don't do it on the pitch.
Yeah.
You shouldn't even be on the pitch. You're the owner. You should never be on the pitch.
I also didn't... when I heard about it, I was expecting it to be a more obvious...
Yeah, me too.
Having a go at him.
Like going by the shit and
whereas I just thought, that's kind of Mediterranean, shouting and expressing. I don't know. He shouldn't be there, but he's done it before.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing. But I'm going to go for him. Who are you going for?
Could just go up out and just say the same as usual. Obviously, we know
Arsenal fans.
Because we know there's going to be a protest in the Villa game as well. So the one of the week, realistically, every week could be the Glazers because the things that you're seeing on the weekend, I think it's a massive domino effect, and it has always started with them. And I think the way they've run the club has ultimately led us to where we are today.
Yeah,
that's
the Wally of the decade.
That's the Wally of the decade. So it's an easy cop out.
What are you saying, Tom?
It's a football one.
Yeah,
it's got to be football.
Football. Oh, it doesn't have
football
to be. It can be in your life.
In my life.
If someone's recobbled your shoes and they've put the soles on
right, okay. I'll give it my brother then. He ran the Madrid Marathon a couple of weeks back. He's not a great runner in terms of his style. He batters his body, and then he got caught in the power outage on a train from Madrid to Barcelona. So I had no water or food for like 18 hours. Fucked. And then he ran Leeds
Really?
marathon yesterday.
Would you
and
say
now he's in bits.
But like the Spanish league, would you say the Madrid marathon is less physical than the Leeds marathon?
I think it's much worse.
Yeah,
it's quite hilly.
It's actually a lot more physical, unlike La Liga.
And it's hot.
The La Liga.
Yeah, it's a lot easier on the body. Yeah. It's more technical, but less.
Anthony
less
was there, smashed it.
Yeah, he was doing spins all the way. Okay, right. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
for having me.
For the Europa League final, you're going to be in for that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, everyone's going to be in for that. It's going to be a big
I am
show,
worried.
That. Yeah, I am. I think we're going to lose all 3 games between now and the end of the season. It's going to be an absolute disaster.
Yeah. It's that Postecoglou quote that worries me. I always win something.
It's going to end up being the hardest line ever.
It is, isn't it? I can already imagine the TikToks.
Yeah.
Jesus. Right, thank you, Ronaldo. Thank you for joining us at home as well. Thank you very much. Hit subscribe to the channel if you're already, and also hit the like button on the video. Let's get to 1,000 likes. We'll see you in a bit.